Hello.
Hello there.
Now, you've probably seen some videos about Chat GPT, haven't you? If you haven't, we have some videos right here that talk about it. You can check it out. We have some that are helpful to you if you're an alternative finance company. They can help you with disclosure laws. We can show you how to build your own GPT that you can use it internally for your employees. Now, I want to talk about something on the flip side of this. I'm Jordan Hansen from Cobalt Intelligence. You've probably heard about Chat GPT. If you haven't, I don't know that you're on the internet.
Must be an on button somewhere. Press the Apple thing.
We show you how to build your own GPT. We built some custom GPTs that you can use in your business as an alternative finance provider. Now today I want to talk a little bit more about integrating the GPT with your software. Be able to build your own, customize it further. And I want to get into that. This is Beyond Banks, which is kind of like a content series that talks about different tools that you can use in your business to help it. Let's get into this. Now, what I want to talk about today are assistants. So assistant is really just the API version of a GPT with a little bit more functionality. With GPT, you can do things like add documents, go through those documents and use them. Now, very similar to that is an assistant. You can add documents, files right here. You can see, I'm gonna get rid of these actually, I don't want them. You can do things like interpret code. You can retrieve files. But the other thing you can do is you can add your own custom functions, which means you tell the assistant what functions it has available, and it will use those in its process as it goes through and solves your problem. So this is an example of Frank. I named him Frank V2 because Frank V1 sucked, frankly. Ha, see what I did there? Frankly. Okay, so this is kind of what the code looks like. And there's going to be some in there, some that's important, some that's not. But the important things you need to know is we have Frank here. We're going to have him visit this site, save it as HTML, upload it to the AI, and then summarize it. So this is a simple task. I want it to visit a site and then give me data back. Now you could have it do whatever you want. I picture it doing things like you can provide it with a function that updates your database, that maybe it goes and gets different data and returns it back to the user. All these different things it can do. And they have these functions separate out here, like create HTML file from web page, which just navigates to this with Axios and then writes the file locally and then it returns it. And then I have one that says upload the file to OpenAI. So it goes ahead and uploads it and it says, hey, we're gonna use this for assistance, and then it returns the file ID. And then we have a way to delete the file. So it'll go through and after we're done, it'll delete the file successfully. So what I want to do right now, I'm gonna say, hey, please visit this site, save it as HTML, upload it to AI, and then summarize the site for me. And what I've done in here, as you can see, I have all these functions. So the functions, this describes that function. Upload the file to OpenAI. And then we have a file name in here, and we say what type it is, which matches our upload file right here. See, I have this object and it gets a file name, and then it uses that in here. And the assistant will go ahead and just return that data back to itself. So how it kind of works is this. It kind of goes through this process. The assistant exists. We save its little ID right here. And then we create a thread. And a thread is really like a context where we're conversing with the assistant. And it's the messages back and forth with me and the assistant. And we go back and forth on this thread. And I'm going to start it as I create it with the initial message that says, hey, this is what I want you to do. And then we start a run. And the run is like really the thread in process as it's going. And so I set up a loop that says, while the run status is not completed and it hasn't failed, then keep iterating and it'll update the status for us. So run status is not even complete. Each time we pause for a second, that's what this does. And then it retrieves the run. It says, okay, where are we at? And then the run could possibly say it needs action, which means it needs us to take action on our side. And it's going to execute one of those function calls. So it's going to say run.status. If it's not completed, it's going to loop through, and then maybe it's going to change the status over to requires action. And then it's going to have us do some function calls, or tool calls is what it's called, which is when it calls back and it calls our different function. I'm going to have that log data as it goes through. I have this deal where it calls that function. Anyway, we'll start it. So it takes a second for it to run. One thing I have noticed is it doesn't really hit into the problems that you see with GPT, where sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it's bogged down, sometimes it errors out. It does a pretty good job of returning that data. And the power of it is that you can feed it these tools it has at its fingertips, right? And then it can use it. So it's looping through right now, and it gives me the status. It's in progress. So it's going through and it's processing. And then it comes back and says, I want you, it's gonna tell me what to do. This is called a tool call. It's gonna say, I create an HTML from the web page. So it gives over the URL, and that's the URL I provided it, and then it names the file, civicreview.html. And this is the return, and then it does it again. It says, okay, now it gets the file, and then it wants to require an action. Now I want you to upload that file file to OpenAI. So it gives it the file name and it uploads it. And then it's going to process it. And it's working on summarizing, right? Now that it's seen the file, it's processing the HTML file because we've uploaded it. In fact, you can see it over here. I think if I'm quick enough before it gets deleted. Frank. Yeah, so there's the file right there. You see now it's processing it and it's trying to summarize. Now this is a better way to do this than I've done it before. We'll talk about that in a second. But the idea is that, again, it's using these different function calls and you're building it and you're providing it with these tools that then it can go forward and make its own decisions. Oh, I love it. Look, now let's see what it says. Civic Review has presented a permit as a permit management software solution tailored for local governments. Oh, let's look at this. There it is. Permit management software for local governments. Not bad. Software solution tailored. Yep, all this stuff. It gets all this different information. It provides it. And then hopefully it also deleted it. If it did it right, we told it to delete it after, I think. I just said summarize. Oh, I didn't. So it probably didn't delete the file, and that's okay. But there it is. And actually, it named it differently here, which is interesting to me that it has a different name. So what was happening before, what I found is that as we go through this, and I did this before when I got the site, and you think, why don't you just give the site to the AI? So you can get the site back and then you can return all the HTML to it. Well, the HTML of a page, it's gigantic. We're talking hundreds of thousands of characters with the style sheets, with the script tags, with all of the attributes inside all of the HTML. That can get enormous.
The thing is huge.
And so sending that back and forth, not only is it very expensive, because every time that goes back and forth, it has to read the whole context of the whole conversation. And so it costs a lot because it's processing all those tokens, but also you run into rate limits. Either something like, I think the base rate limit is 10,000 tokens or maybe 1,000 tokens. I think it's 10,000, whatever. Some tokens per hour. And so you have to make sure you get within that limit to be able to do it, or maybe it's per minute. I don't know. In any case, those rate limits are there. And while they can be extended, it's an inefficient way to use this data. This is too much data going around, but this works amazing. You can upload the file, reference the file to the assistant, and then it can go through and process that data. The most important thing to realize with this is that you can build custom functions, which are tools that you let the AI be aware of, which you can see right here. See, here's the 3 functions I gave it. And then you can go through and it can make its decisions what it wants to use. Did I tell it to use this function? No. Did I tell it to create an HTML file from a web page? Maybe. Yes, I did. Okay, upload to AI. I kind of did. But you can have different things like, hey, I have my database here. And the customer can say, hey, I want to know how many customers do I have, or what's my usage for the month? And you can have a function in there that says get customer information, and it's going to know what customer it is. And it'll go over and write that query and go get that information with that function and return it back to the customer. And because it's all available via API, you can just make it accessible in your web page. Make a little chatbot inside there where it can just search, ask these questions, and it can return with natural language. That's amazing. I hope that you can think of use cases. I want to think more too, and we'll make more videos about it that can be helpful. My name is Jordan Hansen. I hope this has been helpful just to show you a little bit of how you can use Chat GPT as an API, as an assistant in your work. If this has been helpful at all, hit that like, subscribe, and we'll talk more later.